Let's start with something that sounds like it came straight out of a video game development nightmare. The NPC glitch hit Burlington, Vermont on March 3rd, 2019, and what happened there defies every assumption we have about human consciousness and free will. Picture this. You're walking through downtown when you notice something eerily familiar about the people around you. They're moving in perfect patterns, having identical conversations, and performing the exact same actions at precisely timed intervals. College student Emma Rodriguez was the first to document what she initially thought was just an odd coincidence. But as she watched more carefully, the pattern became impossible to ignore. A businessman checked his watch at the same street corner every 12 minutes. A woman window shopped at identical stores, making word-for-word comments about the merchandise to anyone who approached. An elderly man fed pigeons with mechanical precision, using the same handful of breadcrumbs in the exact same sequence. This wasn't normal human behavior. This was programming. Dr. Sarah Chen from the University of Vermont investigated and discovered that approximately 200 residents were exhibiting what could only be described as non-player character behavior. When interviewed, these individuals responded with limited, repetitive dialogue that seemed designed for basic social interaction without providing any meaningful information. Their responses were generic, monotone, and completely devoid of emotional inflection. Video surveillance revealed something even more disturbing. The affected people were moving along invisible pathways that never intersected, as if they were following predetermined routes, programmed to avoid collision detection errors. Their movements lacked the natural variations and micro-adjustments that characterize normal human locomotion. They moved too smoothly, too efficiently, like avatars controlled by artificial intelligence. Medical examination showed normal brain activity, but EEG patterns revealed something unprecedented. All affected residents displayed identical neural rhythms that didn't match any known brain states. It was as if their consciousness had been temporarily overridden by external programming, turning them into biological robots, running the same basic software. The glitch lasted exactly 6 days before everyone suddenly returned to normal behavior patterns. They retained absolutely no memory of their programmed period and showed genuine confusion when presented with video evidence of their scripted actions. Their brain scans had returned to normal individual variations, as if someone had simply switched them back to manual control. But here's the truly terrifying part. Similar events have been reported in college towns across New England, always lasting exactly 6 days and affecting roughly the same percentage of the local population. The incidents are increasing in frequency and expanding to larger metropolitan areas. This brings us to our next case, which occurred in Phoenix, Arizona on July 7, 2016. The Riverside shopping mall experienced what witnesses could only describe as a despawn event, where objects, people, and entire sections of the building began disappearing in a pattern that looked exactly like computer memory being cleared to free up processing resources. Security guard Robert Martinez was patrolling the food court when he witnessed something that challenged everything he understood about reality. Tables and chairs were disappearing in sequence, not falling or being removed, but simply ceasing to exist. They faded away like graphics being deleted from a computer screen, starting from the edges and working toward the center until nothing remained but empty space. The despawn effect followed a logical hierarchy that any computer programmer would recognize. Decorative objects vanished first, followed by non-essential items, with fundamental structural elements being preserved until the very end. It was exactly like watching a computer program optimize memory usage by removing unnecessary assets to maintain system performance. Dr. Angela Foster from Arizona State University arrived during the ongoing event and documented its systematic nature. Objects vanished according to a priority system that maintained essential functions while eliminating anything deemed non-critical. When a decorative fountain disappeared from the center of the mall, the surrounding floor tiles automatically rearranged themselves to fill the gap, creating a seamless surface as if the fountain had never existed. Video analysis revealed that the disappearances followed a grid pattern consistent with computer graphics memory management. Objects vanished in systematic chunks that corresponded to standard data storage units, suggesting that physical reality might be organized like a computer file system with discrete, manageable segments. Perhaps most unsettling was how reality seamlessly adjusted to accommodate the missing objects. Store layouts reorganized automatically when merchandise vanished, maintaining logical traffic flow despite the missing inventory. The mall's computer systems updated in real time to reflect the changes, showing no record that the vanished items had ever existed. Financial records, insurance policies, and supplier contracts were modified to match the post-despawn reality. The event affected approximately 40% of the mall's contents before suddenly stopping after nearly 3 hours. The remaining structures showed no signs of the systematic deletion that had been progressing, but witnesses reported that the mall felt fundamentally different, emptier in ways that couldn't be explained by the visible changes alone. This pattern of reality optimization leads us to our third case, which occurred in Bakersfield, California, on April 22, 2008. What happened there looked like a graphics glitch in a video game, where a section of downtown began displaying in wireframe mode, showing the underlying mathematical structure of buildings, streets, and objects as transparent geometric outlines instead of solid matter. The anomaly began when Maria Santos was walking past the Kern County Museum and noticed that the building's facade was flickering between normal appearance and a translucent wireframe representation. Within an hour, the effect had spread to encompass a 4-block area where buildings appeared as transparent architectural blueprints. Cars looked like 3-dimensional modeling software diagrams, and even people occasionally flickered into wireframe representations, showing their skeletal structure as geometric patterns. Professional photographer Alex Chen captured extensive documentation of what could only be described as a rendering error in reality itself. His photographs show buildings reduced to their basic geometric forms, walls represented as intersecting planes, windows as rectangular outlines, and architectural details as mathematical curves and angles. But here's what made this truly extraordinary. The wireframe objects maintained their physical properties despite their altered appearance. People could still enter buildings that appeared as transparent outlines. Vehicles continued to function normally even when they looked like computer graphics models. The physics remained intact, even though the visual rendering had completely failed. Dr. Robert Kim, a computer graphics expert from UC Berkeley, analyzed the photographs and confirmed that the wireframe representations followed standard 3-dimensional modeling conventions used in software development. The patterns weren't random. They were organized exactly like wireframe models in computer graphics programs, complete with proper geometric topology and mathematical precision. The rendering error revealed hidden structures within familiar objects that shouldn't have existed. Buildings showed internal frameworks that didn't match their architectural plans. People's wireframe representations displayed anatomical details that medical science couldn't identify, including what appeared to be additional circulatory systems and neural networks that don't exist in conventional human biology. The visual glitch progressed in a pattern consistent with computer graphics rendering errors, spreading outward from the museum in concentric circles and affecting objects in a systematic sequence. After exactly 47 minutes, reality suddenly snapped back to normal visual mode. Witnesses described the transition as instantaneous, like a graphics processor suddenly catching up with its workload. These 3 cases alone paint a disturbing picture of reality as a sophisticated simulation experiencing increasing technical difficulties. But we're just getting started. The evidence we're about to examine will challenge everything you think you know about the nature of existence itself. Our 4th case takes us back to Cedar Falls, Iowa, where on November 8, 2012, an entire town experienced what can only be described as a cosmic undo button being pressed on reality itself. At exactly 3:17 in the morning, Cedar Falls reverted to its precise configuration from 24 hours earlier undoing a complete day of changes, construction, and modifications as if someone had restored the entire community from a backup file. Night shift workers at Cedar Falls Medical Center were the first to notice something impossible had occurred. A hospital wing that had been demolished the previous afternoon had somehow reconstructed itself overnight, appearing exactly as it had existed 24 hours earlier, complete with medical equipment, patient records, and even the same wear patterns on the flooring that had been there before demolition began. As residents woke up that morning, they discovered their entire town had been systematically reverted to a previous state. Construction projects that had been completed were undone. Vehicles that had been moved were back in their original parking locations. Even temporary changes like litter, graffiti, and road repairs had been reversed to match the town's exact configuration from the day before. Sarah Mitchell had painted her house green on November 7th, but awakened to find it had returned to its original blue color. Chemical analysis revealed that the original blue paint had been molecularly reconstructed, including age-appropriate weathering and wear patterns that matched its precise condition from 24 hours earlier. This wasn't paint being covered over, this was matter being restored at the atomic level. The Cedar Falls City Planning Office discovered that their digital records had also been affected by the reset. Computer files that had been updated on November 7th reverted to their previous versions, and new documents created that day had vanished entirely. Timestamp data showed these files had been overwritten at exactly 3:17 in the morning by older versions of themselves, as if the entire digital infrastructure had been rolled back to a previous checkpoint. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, a temporal physicist from the University of Iowa, investigated the reset event and found evidence that the entire town had been restored from what appeared to be a backup copy of its previous state. Her classified report concluded that reality maintains save files, and Cedar Falls had been restored from a checkpoint created exactly 24 hours earlier. The reset affected everything within the town limits with surgical precision. A construction project that spanned the border between Cedar Falls and neighboring Waterloo was partially reversed, but only the portion with inerted to its previous Cedar Falls city limits rev state, creating a perfectly straight line where the reset effect ended. This level of precision suggests that whatever system controls reality operates with geographic parameters as exact as any computer program. Most disturbing was the reset's effect on biological systems. Plants that had been trimmed or damaged on November 7th were restored to their previous condition. Injuries suffered by residents that day had healed back to their exact state from 24 hours earlier. Even natural processes like digestion and cellular repair had been reversed, as if biological time itself had been rewound with mathematical precision. Government investigators discovered that similar reset events had been reported in small towns across the Midwest, always occurring at 3:17 in the morning and always reverting exactly 24 hours of changes. The incidents appeared to be increasing in frequency, suggesting that reality's backup and restore functions were becoming more active, more necessary to maintain system stability. Moving from temporal anomalies to spatial impossibilities, our fifth case occurred in New York City's Grand Central Terminal on December 14th, 2005. John Stevenson was walking through the crowded terminal when he accomplished something that should violate the fundamental laws of physics. He passed directly through a solid marble pillar as if it didn't exist, emerging on the other side unharmed while dozens of witnesses watched in stunned silence. Security cameras captured the entire event from multiple angles, recording what appeared to be a complete violation of the principle that solid objects cannot occupy the same space. The footage shows Stevenson approaching the pillar at normal walking speed, his body partially disappearing into the marble surface, then completely passing through to emerge on the opposite side. Video forensics experts found no evidence of tampering or digital effects. Stevenson described the experience as feeling like walking through thick liquid during the moments when his body overlapped with the marble column. He reported that he could see the internal structure of the pillar while passing through it, observing steel reinforcement bars and the concrete core as if they were transparent. For those 2.5 seconds, the solid matter had become as permeable as air. Port Authority police officer Maria Rodriguez was standing less than 10 feet away when the phase walking occurred. She immediately approached Stevenson after he emerged, confirming that he was completely solid and normal to the touch. Her testimony, combined with the security footage and witness statements from approximately 30 people in the terminal, created an ironclad case that something impossible had definitely occurred. Dr. Patricia Kim from Columbia University examined the security footage and confirmed that Stevenson's body had appeared to occupy the same physical space as the solid marble pillar for exactly 2.3 seconds. Her report stated that this violated the Pauli exclusion principle, one of the fundamental rules of quantum mechanics that prevents two solid objects from existing in the same location simultaneously. Medical examination of Stevenson immediately after the incident revealed no injuries or unusual conditions, but electromagnetic field detectors revealed unusual energy patterns around his body that persisted for several hours. Most disturbing was Stevenson's report that part of him felt like it was still inside the pillar for days afterward, as if a portion of his quantum signature had become entangled with the marble structure. Follow-up investigation revealed that the specific pillar Stevenson had passed through had been displaying unusual properties for weeks before the incident. Maintenance workers reported that the marble surface felt softer than normal, and electromagnetic instruments detected fluctuating energy fields within the column that had no identifiable source. The Port Authority immediately restricted access to the affected area, but witnesses continued to report that the pillar occasionally appeared translucent or flickering like a hologram with poor signal reception. Our sixth documented glitch takes us to Taos, New Mexico, where on August 4th, 1969, the residents experienced something that challenged the most fundamental force in the universe. For exactly 17 minutes, gravity stopped working properly. Objects floated freely in the air, water flowed upward, and people could jump extraordinary distances without falling back down, as if someone had adjusted the universal constants governing mass and attraction. The anomaly began at precisely 10:47 in the morning, when Maria Santos was hanging laundry in her backyard. She dropped a wet sheet and watched in amazement as it floated gently upward instead of falling to the ground. Within minutes, similar reports were flooding the local police station as objects throughout Taos began defying the gravitational field that had governed them for billions of years. Dr. Richard Morrison, a physicist who happened to be visiting the area, attempted to document the phenomenon with improvised experiments. He discovered that gravity wasn't completely absent, but had been reduced to approximately 15% of normal strength. Objects still fell, but slowly and gently, as if the town existed in a low-gravity environment like the surface of the moon. Local television station KQED was filming a documentary about southwestern archaeology when the gravity anomaly began. Their archived footage shows reporter Janet Williams conducting an interview while papers and debris float around her in the background. The cameraman can be heard asking what was happening as his equipment began to drift away from him, creating a surreal record of physics temporarily malfunctioning. The most precise aspect of the Taos gravity event was its exact duration and boundaries. The reduced gravity effect lasted exactly 17 minutes and ended as abruptly as it had begun. The anomaly was confined to a perfect circle with a radius of approximately 2 miles centered on the town plaza. Outside this boundary, gravity functioned normally, creating an invisible dome where the fundamental forces of nature had been temporarily reprogrammed. When the 17 minutes ended, all floating objects crashed to the ground simultaneously, creating a cacophony of breaking glass and falling debris that could be heard throughout the town. Several people who had been jumping or floating were injured when normal gravity suddenly resumed, as if someone had flipped a switch to restore default physics parameters. Government investigators arrived within hours and classified most documentation related to the event. Official explanations ranged from mass hysteria to seismic activity, but none could account for the physical evidence or the dozens of photographs and film footage that captured objects suspended in midair during those 17 impossible minutes. These cases continue to paint a picture of reality as a sophisticated system experiencing increasingly frequent technical difficulties. But what we're about to examine next will show you just how deep these glitches can go, affecting not just individual objects or locations, but the very fabric of space and time itself. Our seventh case takes us to the skies above the Pacific Ocean, where on September 23, 1997, commercial airline pilot Captain David Chen witnessed something that violated every principle of aerodynamics and physics. At 30,000 feet, floating motionless in empty sky, was a landmass approximately the size of Manhattan, complete with forests, structures, and what appeared to be people moving around on its surface. Chen immediately contacted air traffic control to report the impossible sighting, but radar showed absolutely nothing at the coordinates where he observed the aerial territory. However, passengers and crew on Flight 447 confirmed his observations, with several capturing photographs and video footage of what could only be described as a floating island suspended in mid-air with no visible means of support. Through binoculars, Chen could observe what appeared to be a complete ecosystem hanging in space. There were forests, buildings that resembled medieval architecture, and movement that suggested animal or human activity. The landmass cast a distinct shadow on the clouds below, proving it was a solid three-dimensional object rather than some kind of optical illusion or atmospheric phenomenon. Flight attendant Lisa Parker described looking down at the floating territory and seeing what resembled a village with people walking around, completely unaware they were suspended miles above the Earth's surface. Other passengers reported cultivated fields, roads, and even smoke rising from what appeared to be chimneys, as if this aerial community was going about normal daily life, despite their impossible location. As Flight 447 approached the floating landmass, Chen made the decision to alter course slightly for a closer examination. At approximately 2 miles distance, passengers could clearly observe that the island was inhabited by human figures who seemed to be conducting normal activities despite their aerial situation. Most disturbing was that the people on the floating territory appeared to notice the aircraft, with several figures pointing at the plane and gathering in groups as if discussing this unusual sight from their skybound perspective. Air traffic control scrambled 2 F-16 interceptors to investigate Chen's report, but by the time the military aircraft reached the coordinates, the floating island had vanished completely. The fighter pilots found empty sky with no trace of the massive landmass that dozens of civilian witnesses had observed just minutes earlier. Investigation revealed that Flight 447's navigation instruments had malfunctioned during the sighting, displaying impossible readings that suggested the aircraft was simultaneously at multiple altitudes and geographic locations. These technical anomalies lasted exactly as long as the floating island remained visible, as if the presence of the aerial landmass had somehow interfered with the plane's systems. Analysis of passenger photographs and video footage confirmed images that experts verified had not been digitally altered, yet showed a landmass suspended in empty sky under conditions that should have made such an object impossible to maintain. The island appeared to have its own weather patterns, with clouds forming around its edges despite the clear sky surrounding it. Our 8th documented glitch occurred in Millbrook, Illinois on June 12, 2003, where residents began reporting an impossible phenomenon that looked like a rendering error in a video game. Exact duplicates of themselves were appearing throughout the town, going about daily routines in perfect synchronization with the originals. These weren't lookalikes or imposters. They were pixel-perfect copies that moved, spoke, and behaved identically to their counterparts. The first documented case involved librarian Rebecca Martinez, who was working alone when she observed herself walking past the window outside. Initially dismissing it as a reflection, Martinez investigated and discovered her duplicate shelving books in the reference section. The duplicate acknowledged her with a nod and continued working, apparently unaware that anything unusual was happening. As word spread through the small community, more residents discovered their own duplicates performing routine activities in different locations. Tom Bradley encountered his copy mowing a lawn 3 blocks away. Sarah Winston found her duplicate grocery shopping at the same store, purchasing identical items from an identical shopping list. The duplicates possessed complete knowledge of their original's memories and could answer personal questions that only the real person would know. Medical examination revealed that the copies had identical DNA, fingerprints, and retinal patterns to their originals. Dr. Michael Ross from Northwestern University found that the duplicates appeared to be genuine matter rather than projections or illusions, casting shadows and registering on thermal imaging equipment. However, attempts to separate duplicates from their originals by more than approximately 500 meters resulted in both versions experiencing severe disorientation and memory fragmentation. Most unsettling was the discovery that actions performed by either the original or duplicate were mirrored by their counterpart with a delay of exactly 4.7 seconds, creating a synchronization so precise that researchers could predict duplicate behavior with atomic clock accuracy. Video surveillance revealed that the duplicates weren't spawning randomly, but appearing in locations where their originals had been exactly 24 hours earlier. This pattern suggested that reality was somehow replaying previous versions of people, as if the town was stuck in a temporal buffer, displaying cached copies of residents' past activities. The phenomenon lasted exactly 6 days before all duplicates simultaneously faded away like static on a television screen. Witnesses described the disappearance as dissolving into pixels that briefly flickered before vanishing completely, leaving no trace that the duplicates had ever existed. Moving from spatial anomalies to temporal impossibilities, our 9th case involves Jennifer Kumar, who on Tuesday, March 15, 2011, experienced something that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of linear time. She lived the same day 47 times in a row, with each loop beginning at exactly 6:23 in the morning when her alarm rang and ending at 11:59 in the evening when she fell asleep, only to wake up again on what was still Tuesday, March 15, 2011. Kumar initially assumed she was experiencing some form of psychological breakdown, but as the loops continued, she began to notice patterns that proved her experience was genuinely temporal rather than mental. She could predict random events with perfect accuracy, knowing which songs would play on the radio, when traffic accidents would occur, and what her co-workers would say in meetings before these events happened. During loop number 12, Kumar attempted to prevent a traffic accident she had witnessed in previous iterations. She contacted police to report the collision before it occurred, providing exact details of when and where it would happen. Initially dismissing her call as a prank, authorities became intensely interested in her apparent precognitive abilities when the accident happened exactly as she had predicted. As the loops continued, Kumar discovered she could accumulate knowledge and skills that persisted between iterations. Even though the rest of the world reset each time, she learned Italian, memorized entire books, and developed expertise in subjects she had never studied. Her consciousness remained continuous across the loops, while reality around her remained trapped in a 24-hour cycle. By loop 23, Kumar had documented enough evidence to convince a small team of researchers that something extraordinary was occurring. Dr. Sarah Chen worked with Kumar to design experiments that could potentially detect the temporal anomaly using sensitive equipment, treating the situation like a scientific investigation rather than a psychological case study. The most disturbing discovery came during loop 31, when Kumar realized she could influence the loop's parameters through focused mental effort. By concentrating intensely on specific times, she could extend or compress certain portions of the repeated day, making her lunch break last subjectively hours while the clock advanced only minutes. During loop 45, Kumar encountered another person who was aware of the repetition. An elderly man named Frank Rodriguez had been experiencing the same Tuesday for 3 loops. Together, they discovered that the temporal anomaly was expanding, trapping more people in the same repeating day pattern, like a virus spreading through the fabric of time itself. The loops finally ended during the 47th iteration, when Kumar and Rodriguez performed a specific sequence of actions that somehow reset the temporal program. Kumar awoke on Wednesday, March 16, 2011, but retained all her accumulated knowledge and memories from the repeated days. Our final case brings us full circle to one of the most thoroughly documented impossibilities in recorded history. On October 3rd, 1593, Spanish soldier Gil Perez was standing guard at the governor's palace in Manila, Philippines, when he experienced something that challenged every assumption about the nature of space and distance. He blinked, felt momentarily dizzy, and suddenly found himself 9,000 miles away in Mexico City's Plaza Mayor, still wearing his Manila uniform and carrying his Filipino-issued musket. What makes this teleportation extraordinary isn't just the impossible distance, but that dozens of witnesses in Mexico City watched him materialize out of thin air in the middle of the crowded plaza. Mexican authorities immediately arrested Perez, assuming he was a deserter or spy, but his story contained information that wouldn't reach Mexico for months via traditional ship routes. Perez described his teleportation experience as feeling like reality flickered around him, as if the world had briefly paused and then resumed in a different location. He said the transition felt like stepping through a doorway that opened in the air itself, and that for a moment he could see both Manila and Mexico City simultaneously, as if they were different rooms in the same building. When the next ship arrived from the Philippines months later, it confirmed every detail of Perez's account. The governor had indeed been assassinated on the exact date Perez claimed, and witnesses in Manila confirmed that he had vanished from his guard post at the precise moment he appeared in Mexico City. The Spanish Inquisition investigated extensively, conducting interviews with dozens of witnesses in both locations. Their official records, preserved in Vatican archives, concluded that Perez had experienced supernatural transportation that defied natural law, finding no evidence of fraud, conspiracy, or mental illness. These 10 cases represent far more than isolated anomalies or unexplained phenomena. They form a pattern that suggests our reality operates more like an incredibly sophisticated computer simulation than the solid, continuous universe our senses tell us we inhabit. From soldiers teleporting across oceans to entire towns resetting like saved game files, the evidence points to a digital framework underlying everything we think we know about existence. What makes these incidents truly unsettling isn't just their impossibility, but their systematic nature. They follow patterns consistent with computer glitches rather than random supernatural events. The duplicates behave like rendering errors. The wireframe buildings reveal underlying code structures. The gravity malfunctions suggest adjustable parameters. The phase-walking incidents imply that solid matter might be nothing more than convincing graphics that occasionally fail to render properly. Perhaps most disturbing is the accelerating frequency of these reality glitches. Each incident provides glimpses of the programming that might control our universe, suggesting that time can loop, space can be reorganized, gravity can be adjusted, and people can be copied, deleted, or reset like files in a computer system. If we truly are living inside a simulation, these glitches offer us rare windows into the code that runs our existence. They reveal a reality that's far more malleable, more digital, and more programmed than we ever imagined. The question isn't whether these events happened. The evidence is too overwhelming to dismiss. The question is what they tell us about the true nature of our universe, and whether the system that contains our reality is becoming increasingly unstable. The next time you witness something that seems impossible, something that defies the laws of physics or challenges your understanding of reality, remember these cases. You might not be seeing the impossible. You might be witnessing the simulation itself breaking down, revealing the digital architecture that creates everything we call real.